She is a powerful CEO. He is just the janitor in her building. One night she asks him for something unbelievable. "Just act like you are mine for tonight." His reply leaves her absolutely speechless. What happens next will stay with you. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The marble floor of Horizon Tower gleams under fluorescent lights that hum like distant machinery. It is nearly midnight, and silence presses against the glass walls of the 42nd floor like water against a submarine hull. The city breathes below millions of lights pulsing in rhythm with lives being lived, connections being made, families gathering around dinner tables while the work they did during daylight hours fades into memory. Catherine Ward stands in her corner office, arms folded across her chest, her gaze fixed not on the city lights sprawling below, but on the man pushing a cleaning cart with steady precision through the executive corridor outside her glass walls. She has been watching him for weeks now, though she tells herself it is just idle curiosity. Just the way her eyes happen to land on him during these late nights when the building empties and silence becomes her only companion. There is something about the way he moves, a quiet dignity in the arc of his shoulders, the careful attention he pays to corners others would overlook. The kind of peace that comes only when someone has been broken completely and forced to rebuild with whatever scraps are left. Tonight there is no denying it anymore. She is not watching out of curiosity. She is searching for courage in his steadiness, trying to borrow some fragment of the calm he carries like a worn coat. Her reflection stares back from the floor-to-ceiling windows. A woman in a tailored charcoal suit with hair pulled back so tight it could be armor. Not a strand out of place. Not a crack in the facade she wears for boardrooms and shareholders and magazine covers that ask about her success, but never about the cost. The city stretches below like a glowing circuit board, beautiful and cold. Somewhere down there, people are going home to warm apartments, to partners who ask about their day, to children who run to the door shouting, "Mommy" or "Daddy" with arms wide open. Somewhere down there, people are not alone. Catherine's penthouse waits 42 floors above this office, all marble countertops and designer furniture, and a view that costs more per month than most people earn in a year. The refrigerator holds takeout containers marked with days of the week, Monday through Friday, in her assistant's neat handwriting, because Catherine cannot remember when she last cooked. Her phone rings constantly, but only with business calls, acquisition proposals, interview requests, shareholder concerns. No one calls to ask if she is okay. No one calls just to hear her voice. Tomorrow night is the annual Horizon Industries Charity Gala, the kind of event where Chicago's elite gather in tuxedos and evening gowns to write checks and take photographs and ask questions Catherine has learned to dread. And Catherine, when will you settle down? Surely someone with your success must have someone special. The pitying looks from married board members who think she chose power over love as if those were the only options. The knowing smiles that say she is too ambitious, too cold, too focused. To ever make room for anything soft or human or real, she has perfected her responses over the years. Polite deflections wrapped in humor. "I am married to the company," she says with a laugh that sounds practiced, because it is. "My parents built this empire, and I am honored to carry it forward. The work is fulfilling. I do not need anything else." Lies taste like metal on her tongue. Her heels click softly against marble as she steps out of her office. The sound echoes in the empty corridor, announcing her presence. The man with the cleaning cart looks up, and in that instant their worlds collide in a way that makes Catherine's breath catch. His gaze is steady and certain, the kind that holds entire stories in its depths. His eyes lock onto hers, seeing not the polished mask she wears for the world, but something underneath. The fragile woman hiding behind quarterly reports and power suits, and the weight of a legacy she did not ask for but cannot abandon. Catherine swallows hard, her pulse quickening in a way that has nothing to do with the late hour or the caffeine she consumed to stay alert through evening conference calls with Tokyo investors. I need to ask you something. She begins, her voice steadier than her racing heart. The words feel foreign on her tongue, weighted with a desperation she has never allowed herself to show. Not to the board, not to the media, not even to Linda, her executive assistant and closest thing to a friend. The man sets down his mop with careful precision, straightening slowly. His uniform is faded grey, worn at the elbows from years of use. Hers is a suit that costs more than his monthly rent, custom-tailored in Milan during a business trip she barely remembers beyond hotel conference rooms and rushed meals eaten alone. The contrast between them is not lost on either of them, hanging in the air like smoke. Tomorrow night there is a gala. Catherine continues fighting to keep her voice level, something I cannot face alone. She pauses, and the request feels absurd even before she voices it. The kind of thing that happens in movies, but not in real life, not to CEOs who run billion-dollar companies. Her hands tremble slightly at her sides, betraying the control she fights so hard to maintain. I need you to act like you are mine, just for tonight. The words hang between them, exposed and raw. Catherine wants to take them back immediately to laugh, and say she is joking, to retreat behind her office door and pretend this moment never happened. But she does not move, cannot move, because something about the way he is looking at her with eyes that see too much makes her feel like running would be more dangerous than staying. James Harper moves through the executive floor of Horizon Tower like a ghost, his presence noticed only by the trail of clean floors he leaves behind. Invisible. That is how he prefers it. How he has trained himself to be over 3 years of pushing mops and emptying trash bins in buildings where he once walked as an equal. The smell of industrial cleaner mixes with the lingering scent of expensive coffee from earlier meetings, creating an odor that has become as familiar as breathing. The weight of the mop handle in his calloused hands grounds him, keeps him focused on the present rather than the past that stalks him through sleepless nights. The squeak of cartwheels on marble echoes in empty hallways, a rhythm that has become his meditation, his way of marking time in a life that stopped moving forward the day everything fell apart. Through the glass walls he can see the city lights, the same view he used to enjoy from offices that bore his name on the door. Back when he wore suits and commanded teams and designed propulsion systems that helped satellites reach orbit. Back when his hands drafted equations instead of wringing out dirty mop water. Back when people met his eyes instead of looking through him like he is part of the furniture. As he empties a trash bin near the executive offices, his mind drifts, despite his best efforts to stay present. 5 years ago, he stood in rooms like these as an engineer, not the help. He designed systems that cut through clouds and defied gravity, his work cited in journals, his name spoken with respect at aerospace conferences. Then came the safety violation he could not ignore. Faulty seals that could fail catastrophically, risking lives for the sake of meeting deadlines and protecting profit margins. He reported it through proper channels, following every rule, trusting the safeguards that were supposed to protect people who spoke up. The company buried it, classified his reports, dismissed his concerns as overcautious paranoia from an engineer who did not understand business realities. So he went public, contacted the FAA, filed formal complaints, became a whistleblower, that word that sounds noble in theory but in practice means target. The company destroyed him with the kind of precision he once applied to engineering problems. Lawsuits that drained every cent of savings. Legal fees that multiplied like cancer cells, consuming their future 1 billable hour at a time. His name blacklisted across the aerospace industry, with whispers of instability, of being difficult to work with, of not being a team player. Job applications that went unanswered. Interviews that never materialized. A career that vanished overnight, as if 36 years of his life simply stopped existing. And then the cruelest blow. The night Sarah never came home. The car accident that took his wife happened while he was in a courtroom fighting for truth, for safety, for the principle that lives matter more than quarterly earnings. She was rushing home from working a double shift, trying to cover their mounting legal bills, her eyes tired from too many late nights, her attention fractured by stress. She ran a red light. The truck driver never had a chance to stop. Emma was 4 years old enough to ask where Mommy went. Too young to understand she was not coming back. Too young to comprehend that Daddy's choice to do the right thing cost them everything. For 3 years now, James has traded blueprints for mop handles, boardrooms, for hallways where executives pass without seeing him. He keeps his head down, tells himself that dignity can be found in doing any job well, even this one. That honest work is honest work, regardless of how far he has fallen. But dignity does not buy Emma new shoes when hers wear thin, the soles separating from the sides, so that rain seeps in during their walks to school. Dignity does not pay for piano lessons. She begs for her small fingers pressing invisible keys in the air as she hums melodies only she can hear. Dignity does not erase the way she looks at other children's birthday parties, understanding without being told that they cannot afford the trampoline park or the bounce house or the magician. Money matters, and Catherine Ward's offer, whatever it truly means, carries the weight of change. His phone buzzes in his pocket. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez, his elderly neighbor, who watches Emma during his night shifts. Emma's asleep. Drew you another picture. This one has rockets. James smiles despite the ache in his shoulders, despite the exhaustion that has become his constant companion. 7 years old, all questions and curls and wonder that the world has not yet managed to crush. She is the only reason he gets up at 5 a.m. for construction work before coming here. The only reason he has not given up completely. He feels eyes on him before he sees her. Catherine Ward stands in her office doorway, backlit by the glow of computer screens, still running financial projections that will never be read tonight. She has been watching him for weeks, though he does not know, cannot imagine, what a CEO sees in a janitor beyond someone to clean up her messes. There is something different about her tonight, though. A tension in her shoulders, a vulnerability in the way she holds herself, as if the armor she wears might crack under just a little more pressure. When she steps into the hallway, her heels clicking against marble, James looks up and their eyes meet. Hers are hazel, he notices for the first time. Green and brown mixed together like forest floor after rain, and they are looking at him not through him, but at him as if he is a person rather than a function. It unnerves him more than he wants to admit. "I need to ask you something," Catherine says, and her voice carries an edge of desperation that surprises them both. James sets down his mop, straightening slowly. His janitor's uniform is faded grey, worn at the elbows, a hand-me-down from the previous person who held this position before getting something better and escaping. Her suit is black and impeccable, probably costs what he makes in 3 months. The space between them feels vast, despite being only a few feet of polished marble. Tomorrow night there is a gala. Catherine continues her arms folding across her chest, as if she can protect herself from her own words. Something I cannot face alone. Her voice wavers slightly, a crack in the professional veneer. I need you to act like you are mine, just for tonight. The words land between them like stones dropped into still water ripples, spreading outward into silence. James should laugh, should politely decline, should remember his place in the hierarchy that separates CEOs in corner offices from janitors who clean them. But he does not do any of those things. Because when he looks at Catherine Ward stripped of boardroom confidence in this late-night confession, he sees something he recognizes with the bone-deep certainty of lived experience. Loneliness. The kind that echoes in empty rooms and presses against your chest when you are trying to fall asleep, making each breath feel heavier than the last. He knows that feeling intimately, has carried it for 3 years like a second shadow. The silence stretches. Catherine's hands tremble at her sides, barely noticeable, but there, if you know to look. James notices because his hands used to shake like that in courtrooms, in depositions in the weeks after Sarah died, when holding a coffee cup felt like lifting weights. "I have a daughter," James says finally, his voice low and measured. 7 years old. She is the reason I take every shift I can get. Stack construction work in the mornings with janitorial work at night, sleep 4 hours and call it enough. The reason I am still standing when everything else fell apart. Catherine's breath catches something flickering across her face that might be surprise or might be recognition that this is more complicated than she anticipated. "If I do this," James continues, choosing each word with care, "if I step into your world for one night, you need to understand something." His gaze holds Catherine's without wavering, without apology. "I do not do halfway. I do not know how to pretend at things that matter." He takes a step closer, not quite touching, but close enough that Catherine can smell the faint scent of industrial cleaner on his uniform mixed with something else, soap and exhaustion, and the particular smell of honest work. "So if you are asking me to act like I am yours tonight," James says, his voice dropping even lower, "you should know that when I commit to something, even pretend I do it all the way." His rough hand reaches out, not quite touching hers, but close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from his skin. The question is, are you ready for someone who does not know how to wear masks? The question hangs in the air between them, challenging and honest and more real than anything Catherine has heard in years. She stares at him speechless. She expected a simple yes or no, maybe a negotiation about payment, a discussion of logistics, the transactional exchange that governs most of her world. She did not expect this, a man in a janitor's uniform telling her that his pretend love might be more real than anything she has known. For the first time in years, Catherine Ward, who commands boardrooms and negotiates billion-dollar deals and never lets anyone see her sweat, does not have words. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. "Yes," she finally whispers, and the word comes out smaller than she intended, vulnerable in a way that terrifies her. "I am ready." But even as she says it, Catherine wonders if she is. The silence that follows Catherine's answer stretches between them, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the distant wail of a siren 42 floors below someone else's emergency bleeding into the night. Catherine's carefully constructed composure cracks just a hairline fracture, but enough that James can see the woman beneath. Her shoulders drop slightly, the defensive posture softening. Her hands uncurl from fists she did not realize she was making. "Come to my office," she says quietly, and turns without waiting to see if he will follow. James does, leaving his cleaning cart by the wall, a small act of rebellion that feels larger than it is. He has never been in her office, only cleaned around its edges, emptying trash and wiping down surfaces, while pretending not to notice the late nights. She keeps the takeout containers that multiply the way she stares at her phone, like she is waiting for a call that never comes. The office is exactly what he expected, and somehow more. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Chicago that makes the city look like a toy, all lights and geometry with no hint of the struggle happening in the streets below. Furniture that costs more than a car, sleek and modern and uncomfortable looking. A desk larger than James's kitchen table, its surface holding only a laptop, a single pen and a photograph in a silver frame. James glances at the photo as Catherine moves to her desk. A younger couple, maybe in their 30s, standing in front of a building with a sign that reads, Horizon Industries. The woman has Catherine's eyes. The man has his hand on her shoulder, and she covers his hand with hers. They look happy in the way people do when they have built something together, when they are partners in every sense of the word. My parents, Catherine says, catching his gaze. They started this company 40 years ago, built it from a single office to what it is now. She picks up the frame, her thumb tracing the silver edge. They did it together. Every decision, every risk, every victory and failure. Together. She sets the photo down carefully, precisely, as if its placement matters. I have been running it alone for 6 years, since they died. A car accident, drunk driver. They did not see it coming. James feels the words settle in his chest. I am sorry, he says, and means it with the weight of someone who knows that particular grief. Catherine nods, then seems to shake herself, slipping back into business mode because it feels safer than whatever emotion was threatening to surface. She pulls a piece of company letterhead from her desk drawer, writes an address in precise handwriting. The gala details. What time he should arrive. What the dress code is black tie optional, but everyone wears black tie. There is the matter of payment. Catherine says, not meeting his eyes. I will compensate you for your time, whatever rate seems appropriate. James shakes his head slowly, the motion deliberate. I do not want your money. Catherine looks up, genuine surprise crossing her features. Then why would you? Because James interrupts gently. Sometimes two people recognize the same loneliness in each other, and maybe for one night we can both pretend we are not drowning. His smile is sad around the edges, understanding too much. Consider it mutual benefit. You get someone to stand beside you at your gala. I get to remember what it feels like to be seen as something other than invisible. Catherine opens her mouth, closes it, tries again. I do not know what to say to that. Then do not say anything James suggests. Just tell me what time to be there. They settle the details. 7:45 entrance on Michigan Avenue Valet, parking that James will not use because he will take the bus. Catherine will meet him in the lobby. They will enter together. Stay for 2 hours, maybe 3. Smile for photographs. Make small talk with donors and board members. Then part ways, the evening ending as cleanly as it began. Simple, transactional, except nothing about the way they are looking at each other feels simple. As James turns to leave, Catherine's voice stops him. Why, she asks. Really why James pauses in the doorway, his hand on the frame. Because my daughter draws pictures of castles with lonely princesses in every window, he says quietly. And she tells me that someone should save them. He looks back over his shoulder. Maybe she is wiser than both of us. He walks away before Catherine can respond. His footsteps echoing in the empty corridor, leaving her alone in her office with a view of the city and a photograph of parents who knew how to build a life together. Catherine sits heavily in her chair, the leather creaking under her weight. She stares at the address she wrote, at her own handwriting that looks shaky in a way it never does on contracts or merger agreements. What has she done? Asked a janitor to pretend to love her for an evening. Exposed her loneliness to a stranger. Crossed lines she did not know existed between employer and employee, between the life she shows the world and the desperate woman hiding underneath. Her phone sits on her desk, silent. 53 unread emails, 12 missed calls, all business. 0 messages asking if she is okay. Catherine picks up the photo of her parents, studies their linked hands, the way they lean into each other like 2 parts of a whole. You built this together, she whispers to them. How do I do it alone? But the photo offers no answers, just the frozen moment of a happiness she remembers but cannot seem to recreate. She sets it down, turns off her computer, gathers her things. The penthouse waits empty and expensive, and echoing with the success that was supposed to be enough. Tomorrow night she will walk into a gala on the arm of a man who cleans floors and sees through every defense she spent 20 years building. And somehow that terrifies her more than any hostile takeover or shareholder revolt or economic downturn ever has. Because James Harper, with his worn hands and knowing eyes and daughter who draws castles, might be the first person in years to see Catherine Ward instead of Horizon Industries. And being seen, truly seen, feels more dangerous than being alone. The midnight blue suit hangs on James Harper's bathroom door like an accusation borrowed from a friend of Mrs. Rodriguez's deceased husband, altered by her skillful hands to fit James's broader shoulders. It sways slightly in the draught from the window that will not quite close a ghost of elegance in an apartment that has never known such things. James stares at it while Emma eats breakfast at their wobbly kitchen table, her legs swinging under the chair that rocks unless you know to avoid putting weight on the left side. Cheerios float in milk that is 3 days from expiring, the best he could afford this week after paying for her school supplies and the electricity bill that arrived with a late notice in red ink. "Daddy, why are you wearing fancy clothes tonight?" Emma asks through a mouthful of cereal milk dribbling down her chin. James kneels beside her chair, grabbing a napkin to wipe her face with the practiced efficiency of 3 years raising a daughter alone. "I am helping someone," he says, tying her shoes with frayed laces because new ones are not in this week's budget. Her shoes are a size too small, pinching her toes, but she has not complained yet, and he is grateful for her resilience even as it breaks his heart. Helping how Emma tilts her head, curiosity bright in her dark eyes that mirror Sarah's so perfectly that sometimes looking at his daughter feels like looking at a ghost. By being her friend when she needs one, James explains double-knotting the laces so they will last through a day of playground running and classroom sitting, and the walk home where Emma insists on hopping on 1 foot for an entire block. Emma considers this with the seriousness only children possess, weighing his words like they are precious stones. "That's nice, Daddy. Everyone needs friends." She pauses. Cereal forgotten? Even grown-ups get lonely. James's throat tightens, that familiar ache that comes when his daughter sees too much, understands too much, carries wisdom that 7-year-olds should not have to carry. Especially grown-ups, sweetheart. Is she nice? "The lady you are helping." "Very nice," James says, though he realizes he does not actually know if this is true, knows only that Catherine Ward is lonely and desperate, and saw something in him that made her brave enough to ask. Sometimes, Pumpkin, the nicest people are the ones who feel the loneliest, because they give so much of themselves away that there is nothing left for them. Emma nods like this makes perfect sense. "You should bring her here someday. For spaghetti. The kind with cinnamon that Mommy used to make." The mention of Sarah lands like it always does, a sucker punch to the solar plexus that James has learned to absorb without showing. Maybe someday he manages. Mrs. Rodriguez arrives at exactly 6 p.m., her warm smile and knowing eyes taking in James's nervous energy as he paces their tiny living room. She lives 2 doors down in an apartment identical to theirs, has watched Emma since she was 4, and James had no other options and no money to pay proper childcare. "You look like you are going to a funeral, not a party." She teases gently in English that carries the melody of her native Spanish. "Relax, mijo. Just be yourself." "That is what I am afraid of," James mutters, tugging at the collar of his shirt that feels too tight despite being the right size. Mrs. Rodriguez crosses to him, adjusts his tie with hands that have done this 1,000 times for her own husband before cancer took him. "You are a good man, James Harper. Anyone who cannot see that is blind." She pats his chest. "Now go. Be brave. Maybe tonight is the start of something good." James wants to tell her it is just pretend, just one evening of playing a role before returning to reality. But something about the way she is looking at him, maternal and hopeful, stops the words. The shower is hot, the water pressure terrible, but enough to ease the tension in his shoulders that comes from 14-hour days split between construction sites and janitorial shifts. He shaves carefully, nicking his jaw once a small cut that stings more than it should. The suit fits better than he expected, the fabric soft in a way his work clothes never are, the shoes pinching his work-worn feet, but acceptable for a few hours. The mirror shows a stranger, or maybe James thinks the ghost of who he used to be, a man who attended conferences and gave presentations and wore suits as a uniform of success rather than a costume borrowed for a single night. He thinks about Catherine Ward's request, about the vulnerability in her voice when she asked him to pretend, about the loneliness he recognized in her eyes because it matched his own. Maybe Mrs. Rodriguez is right. Maybe tonight is the start of something. Or maybe it is just two lonely people borrowing each other's company for a few hours before returning to the separate silences that define their lives. Emma gasps when she sees him emerge from the bedroom, her hands flying to her mouth in that dramatic way children have before they learn to hide their reactions. "Daddy, you look like a prince," James laughs, scooping her up despite the suit, despite the risk of wrinkles or stains or the careful grooming coming undone. Just a regular guy in borrowed clothes pumpkin. She touches his face with small hands, her expression suddenly serious in that way that always warns him something profound is coming. "Promise you will come home." Her voice is smaller than usual, carrying fear she rarely shows. The question cuts deeper than she knows, deeper than James is prepared for. He thinks about Sarah, who went to work one day and never came home, leaving an empty space at the dinner table that no amount of time has managed to fill. He thinks about all the promises people make that circumstances break, good intentions shattered by drunk drivers and red lights and the randomness of tragedy. But he also thinks about Emma, who has already lost one parent and cannot lose another, who needs certainty even when the world offers none. Always he promises pulling her close. "You are my home, Emma. Nothing changes that. Not fancy clothes or parties or anything else. I will always come back to you." She hugs him fiercely, her small body warm against his chest. "Okay, Daddy. Have fun at the party. Tell the lonely lady that she can come over sometime. We have spaghetti." James sets her down, his eyes burning in a way that has nothing to do with the cheap aftershave he borrowed from Mrs. Rodriguez's medicine cabinet. Deal, he manages. At 7:15, James kisses Emma goodnight, even though she is still awake, entrusts her to Mrs. Rodriguez's capable hands, and steps out into the Chicago evening. The bus stop is 3 blocks away. The ride will take 45 minutes, 3 transfers, but it is cheaper than cab fare he cannot afford to spend on pride. He checks his reflection one more time in a shop window as he walks. A man in a borrowed suit about to step into a world that chewed him up and spit him out 5 years ago. About to pretend to love a woman he barely knows, to stand beside her in rooms full of people who would not look twice at him in his janitor's uniform. The absurdity of it should make him laugh. Instead, it makes him think about Emma's drawings, castles with lonely princess, and her simple wisdom that someone should save them. Maybe tonight, James thinks as the bus pulls up with a hydraulic hiss and a cloud of diesel exhaust, maybe we save each other. He boards, finds a seat in the back, and watches Chicago slide past the windows as the bus carries him toward Horizon Tower and Catherine Ward, and a night that will change everything in ways neither of them can imagine. Catherine Ward stands in her walk-in closet, a space larger than some studio apartments, surrounded by more dresses than she has worn in the past year, and feels paralyzed by choice. Nothing feels right. Nothing feels true. The black gown is too severe, making her look like she is attending a funeral rather than a gala. The navy is too safe, the kind of choice that photographs well but says nothing. The red is too bold, demanding attention she does not want. She has already tried on 7 dresses, each one perfect in its own way and wrong in every way that matters. Linda Chen, her executive assistant and closest thing to a friend, sits on the bed watching with worried eyes that see too much. You have tried on 7 dresses. Linda observes, her voice gentle but pointed. What is really going on? Catherine's hand still on an emerald gown, the fabric cool and smooth under her fingers, like water solidified into silk. I am bringing someone tonight, she says, without looking at Linda, focusing on the dress, because it is easier than facing the concern she knows she will find. Linda's eyebrows rise toward her hairline, surprise evident. A date, you. Her tone is not unkind, just shocked, because in the 6 years Linda has worked for Catherine, there have been no dates, no relationships, no signs of personal life beyond the empire they build together during business hours. Don't sound so shocked, Catherine says, but there is no bite in it, just exhaustion from a week of sleepless nights second-guessing her decision. Who is he? Linda asks, leaning forward with interest that makes Catherine want to retreat into the professional distance they usually maintain. Catherine hesitates, the truth heavy on her tongue. Someone who does not care about quarterly earnings or stock prices. Someone who sees me not Horizon Industries. The words come out softer than intended, more vulnerable than she means to be. Linda goes very still, reading between the lines in the way only someone who has watched you work yourself to exhaustion can do. Who is he really, Catherine? The janitor. Catherine admits, finally meeting Linda's eyes. James Harper, night shift, the one who cleans the executive floor. To Linda's credit, she does not laugh or gasp or react with the shock Catherine expected. Instead, she nods slowly, processing. The one you have been watching for weeks. Catherine feels heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassed to be caught. I have not been... You have, Linda interrupts gently. Every night when you work late, your eyes track him through the glass. I thought you were just curious, but this is more than that. Is not it? Catherine sits heavily on the bed beside Linda, the emerald gown still in her hands. I do not know what it is. She pauses, searching for words. I am tired of pretending, of walking into these events alone and deflecting questions about my personal life, of going home to an empty penthouse and eating takeout in silence, of being successful and lonely and acting like that is normal. So you asked the janitor to pretend to be your boyfriend? Linda's voice holds no judgment, just curiosity. I asked him to act like he is mine for one night. Catherine corrects, though the distinction feels meaningless. And he said yes, but not for money. He said she swallows hard. He said sometimes 2 people recognize the same loneliness in each other. The words hang between them, honest and raw. Linda reaches over, squeezes Catherine's hand. Be careful, she says softly. You are looking at him like he might be real. Catherine's hand trembles as she looks at the emerald gown. That is what scares me, she whispers. What if he is? Linda helps her into the dress, zipping it up the back with practiced efficiency. Catherine looks at herself in the full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The emerald brings out the green in her hazel eyes, softens her features, makes her look less like a CEO and more like someone who might laugh freely or cry openly or feel things deeply. Her parents built Horizon Industries on partnership, on love, woven into every business decision. She built her empire alone, and it shows in every polished surface of her success. The awards lining her office walls, the magazine covers celebrating her as one of Chicago's most powerful women, the net worth that grows each quarter while her personal life shrinks to nothing. She thinks about her parents' portrait, their linked hands, the way they leaned into each other like 2 parts of a whole. They would tell her that power without love is just towers of commerce, beautiful but cold, that success measured only in dollars is poverty of the soul. You look beautiful, Linda says, and means it. Now go meet your janitor. And Catherine. Her voice softens. Let yourself feel something real tonight, even if it is just pretend. You deserve that much. Catherine nods, throat tight with emotion she cannot name. She gathers her clutch, checks her makeup one last time, practices her smile in the mirror until it looks genuine enough to fool cameras and guests, and maybe herself. At 7:30, her driver pulls up to Horizon Tower's main entrance on Michigan Avenue. Catherine waits in the lobby, her heart racing in a way that has nothing to do with champagne or crowds or the performance ahead. At 7:45 exactly, James Harper walks through the glass doors and Catherine forgets how to breathe. James arrives at Horizon Tower at 7:45, exactly 15 minutes early, because responsible people arrive early, because he has worked here long enough to know that punctuality is the bare minimum expected. The lobby at night transforms into something else. All architectural statements and dramatic lighting that makes the marble floors glow like moonlight solidified into stone. Security does a double take when he approaches, seeing the janitor from the night shift, dressed in a suit that probably costs more than the guard's monthly salary. The guard checks his phone, then the guest list confusion evident before professional training takes over. "Mr. Harper," he says, surprise barely masked. "Miss Ward is waiting for you." James nods his thanks. His mouth too dry for words, and moves toward the elevator banks where Catherine said she would meet him. His palms sweat despite the cool air conditioning. His heart pounds against his ribs like it is trying to escape. The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime. Catherine Ward steps out, and the world tilts on its axis. Gone is the severe CEO in power suits and armor-like confidence. In her place stands a woman in an emerald gown that shimmers softly under the lobby lights, the fabric moving like water with each step. Her hair falls loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe style, softening her features. The gown brings out green flecks in her hazel eyes that James never noticed before, and something about the way she carries herself tonight, vulnerable and uncertain, makes his chest tighten. She is beautiful, not in the distant, untouchable way of magazine covers, but in the real way of someone who has chosen to lower her defenses to be seen rather than admired from a distance. "You clean up nice," Catherine murmurs, and there is something raw in her voice, something that sounds like relief that he actually came, that this insane plan might actually happen. James finds his voice somewhere in the tightness of his throat. "So do you." Then more honestly, because pretense feels impossible when she is looking at him like that. "You look like someone who is allowed to be human tonight." Catherine's smile falters at the edges, fragile as spun glass. "That is the most terrifying thing anyone has ever said to me," she admits. They stand in the lobby, neither quite ready to take the next step to cross the threshold from reality into whatever performance awaits them. Other guests arrive, couples in formal wear, laughter and perfume filling the space. Catherine and James exist in a bubble of uncertainty visible to others, but separate two people about to jump off a cliff together with no idea if there is water below. "We should," Catherine starts. "Yeah," James agrees, though neither of them moves. Finally, Catherine holds out her hand. Together, she asks, and the word carries more weight than a simple question about walking through a door. James takes her hand, warm and trembling slightly despite her composure. Together, he agrees. In the elevator rising toward the penthouse level where the gala waits, they establish their story the way actors rehearse lines before a performance. Catherine speaks first, her voice steadier now that they are in motion, now that the decision has been made, and there is no turning back. "We met at a coffee shop 3 months ago," she says, the fiction rolling smoothly off her tongue, as if she has practiced. "You were reading an engineering journal. I asked about it. We started talking." She glances at him. 2 months of dating. Taking it slow because we are both cautious people who have been hurt before." James nods, committing the story to memory. And if they ask about the future, Catherine's hand tightens in his. We tell them we are taking it one day at a time, that we are seeing where it goes. Nothing definite enough to require proof, nothing vague enough to invite skepticism. The elevator climbs floor numbers ticking by, the city falling away below them. James watches their reflection in the polished steel doors. A man in a borrowed suit and a woman in emerald silk hands joined, looking like they belong together in a way that surprises him. "Catherine," he says quietly, and she turns to look at him fully. "If this gets uncomfortable, if you want to leave early, just say the word." She studies his face, searching for something. "Why are you being so nice about this?" "Because," James says, squeezing her hand gently, "I know what it is like to feel trapped in your own life, to put on a performance for people who do not really see you, and no one deserves to feel alone in a room full of people." Catherine's eyes shimmer with moisture. She blinks away quickly. "Thank you," she whispers. The elevator chimes. The doors slide open to reveal a room drenched in wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers scattering rainbows across marble floors polished to mirror shine, and Catherine Ward's world in all its glittering, intimidating glory. Catherine's hand trembles in his. James squeezes back, solid and steady. 7 minutes, right? Catherine asks, her voice tight with nerves. "That is all I am asking." James looks down at their joined hands, his rough fingers against her perfectly manicured ones, the contrast stark and somehow right. "Catherine," he says, "when I told you I do not do halfway, I meant it. Tonight is not about counting minutes. It is about showing you what it feels like when someone actually sees you." He meets her eyes, his gaze holding hers. "So no, not 7 minutes. As long as you need." The words land like a promise, heavier than the casual agreement this was supposed to be. Catherine's breath catches something shifting in her expression, walls crumbling without permission. The doors stand open, waiting. Music drifts out. String quartet playing something classical and expensive. Voices murmur in that particular way wealthy people have, confident and assured and taking up space. Together, James reminds her, and they step into a world where neither of them belongs, pretending to be something that feels dangerously close to real. The gala unfolds like a fever dream, all crystal chandeliers scattering rainbows across marble floors that reflect the crowd like a mirror, showing too much truth. The air tastes expensive champagne bubbles and imported perfume, and the sharp metallic tang of ambition that coats the back of James's throat like copper. His borrowed shoes pinch his feet. His suit collar feels too tight despite being the correct size. But Catherine's hand in his grounds him, keeps him from floating away into the surreal absurdity of a janitor attending a party where individual plates cost more than his monthly grocery budget. Men in tuxedos worth more than James's car glide through the space like sharks through dark water. Their laughter calculated, their handshakes weighted with agenda. Women draped in diamonds glitter with every gesture, catching light like human disco balls, their smiles bright and empty as television screens. Everything shimmers, and nothing feels solid. James forces himself to breathe, to remember that he has been in rooms like this before, back when he wore suits as uniform rather than costume. Back when people wanted his opinion on propulsion systems and orbital mechanics. Back before everything fell apart. Catherine introduces him to a silver-haired board member whose name James immediately forgets, too focused on not sweating through his borrowed shirt. "This is James Harper," Catherine says, her voice carrying the practiced confidence of someone who has made 1,000 introductions. "Independent aerospace consultant." Not a lie, technically. Just a truth from a previous lifetime dusted off and presented like it is current rather than ancient history. "What firm are you with?" The board member asks, his tone politely dismissive, already looking past James toward someone more important. "I consult independently now," James replies, and is surprised by how smoothly the words come. How easily he slips back into the language of his old life. After my last project exposed structural failures that could have caused catastrophic consequences, I decided corporate loyalty was not worth the body count. The man's eyes sharpen with interest, focusing on James properly for the first time. Several others lean in, drinks paused halfway to lips. "Tell me more," the board member says, and it is not a polite request. James does painting the story in broad strokes that sound impressive rather than tragic. Faulty seals, safety violations, reports that were buried. His decision to go public rather than risk lives. He leaves out the lawsuits that destroyed him, the career that vanished, the wife who died while he fought for principle. Those details are too raw, too real for this glittering performance. But the engineering knowledge is still there, locked in his brain like muscle memory. When someone asks about propulsion efficiency, James finds himself discussing delta-V calculations and specific impulse with the fluency of his former life. When the conversation turns to innovation versus safety, he argues passionately for protocols that protect human life, his voice carrying conviction that comes from paying the price. Catherine watches him with something like wonder in her eyes, seeing a side of James she did not know existed. This is not the janitor who cleans floors at midnight. This is the engineer he used to be confident and competent and commanding respect without demanding it. Her heart does something complicated in her chest, something between pride and fear, and recognition that James Harper is more than she imagined, that beneath the janitor's uniform is a man who once designed systems that reached orbit, who chose integrity over comfort, who lost everything and somehow remained whole. Someone makes a joke about innovation always coming with risk. James responds with something clever about entropy and human nature, drawing laughter from the group. Catherine laughs too, not her practiced boardroom laugh, but something real that escapes from somewhere deep, unguarded and genuine. The sound startles them both, hanging in the air between them like confession. Time dissolves. 7 minutes becomes 20. 20 becomes 40. James finds himself moving through the crowd as though he belongs, discussing market disruptions and technological advances with men who would not look twice at him in his work uniform. But it is the way Catherine keeps glancing at him when she thinks no one else notices that undoes him. Soft, proud, almost tender. Her hand lingers on his arm, not as part of the performance, but like she wants it there, like his presence anchors her in a way nothing else does. The evening blurs at the edges, conversations bleeding together, faces multiplying. James loses track of time, loses track of the pretense, until an elderly board member with kind eyes and a warm smile approaches them. "Catherine," she says, her voice carrying genuine affection that makes her stand out in this crowd of calculated interactions. "I have been wanting to meet this young man you have been glowing about all evening." Catherine blushes, actually blushes, color rising in her cheeks, like she is not a CEO who commands billions, but just a woman caught being happy. "This is James," she says, and something in her voice has shifted, become softer. The elderly woman studies them both, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "I have one question, if you will indulge me." She looks directly at Catherine. "What makes you so certain about this man?" The room does not exactly quiet, but nearby conversations pause, people turning with the instinct of those who smell story unfolding. Catherine could deflect with humor, could offer a polished response about compatibility and shared values and taking things one day at a time. Instead, she turns to James, her eyes searching his face with quiet intensity, and when she speaks, her voice carries truth that needs no rehearsal. "He sees me," she says simply. "Not what I have built, or what I can do for him. Just me." Her voice drops slightly intimate, even in this public space. In a world where everyone wants something from you, finding someone who just wants you to be real That is everything. The words lodge in James's chest like shrapnel, sharp and impossible to ignore, because he realizes with startling clarity that somewhere between the elevator and this moment, between the first touch of hands and the way Catherine's eyes soften when they land on him, he stopped pretending. The way he holds her hand protective and sure, the pride in his voice when she speaks, defending her intelligence when some old dinosaur questions her judgment. The protectiveness that flares when a drunk executive gets too close, too familiar. James stepping subtly between them without Catherine having to ask. None of it is acting anymore. None of it is performance. It is real in a way that terrifies him, because pretending to love Catherine Ward was supposed to be temporary, borrowed like his suit returned at evening's end with nothing changed. But everything has changed. And judging by the way Catherine's breath catches when their eyes meet, the way her fingers tighten around his, like she is afraid he might disappear, she knows it too. They stand in a room full of people performing wealth and status and success, and become the only two people being real. The air on the balcony is cooler, thinner somehow, carrying the scent of rain that has not yet fallen, but promises to arrive before morning. James steps out first, grateful for the quiet after the dizzying whirl of chandeliers and champagne, and carefully crafted conversations that drained more energy than a 14-hour construction shift. His hands find the stone railing, gripping it like an anchor, and he stares at the sweep of Chicago skyline glittering 45 floors below. For a moment, standing here feels like existing between two worlds. The one that sparkles beneath him, all lights and possibility, and lives being lived in ways he can only imagine now. And the one he carries inside, lined with worn shoes by the door and bedtime stories whispered to a child who still believes her daddy can fix anything. Scraped knees and broken dreams and love that survives despite poverty. The door clicks open behind him. Catherine appears, emerald gown brushing against tile, heels soft against the floor. Out here, away from the performance, she looks smaller somehow, as though the weight of her empire has been left inside with the crystal and conversation. Her shoulders ease for the first time since James met her, dropping from their defensive position. She leans on the railing a few feet away, exhaling a breath she seems to have held all night. Chicago spreads below them like a living map. Every light a story, every street a history. "Thank you," Catherine says quietly, her voice barely carrying over the soft wind. James turns his head, genuinely confused. For what? For making me feel normal. She admits her gaze fixed on the maze of lights below, following streets to neighborhoods she probably never visits. Lives she will never touch despite her wealth. For a little while in there, I was not the woman every headline expects me to be. I was not quarterly reports or succession plans. Her voice catches slightly. I was just someone standing beside another person, laughing like it mattered. Her words carry a tremor, fragile yet unflinchingly honest. The kind of confession that only comes at night when defense is lower and truth slips through the cracks. "I know what you mean," James says, softly drawn to share his own truth by the vulnerability in hers. In there, I was not the janitor. I was not the guy who pushes a mop at midnight or the father counting pennies for his daughter's shoes. I was just James. He pauses, the admission heavier than expected. I forgot what that felt like. To be seen as a person instead of a function. Catherine turns to face him fully, her hair catching the glow of the city behind them, creating a halo effect that makes her look almost otherworldly. "Who were you?" she asks. "Before the janitor, an engineer." James says the word, tasting strange after 3 years of denial. "Aerospace propulsion systems. I designed engines that helped satellites reach orbit." He stares at his hands, calloused and rough-scarred from construction work and cleaning chemicals. These hands used to draft equations that defied gravity, used to build things that flew. What happened? Catherine's voice is gentle, giving him permission to share or stay silent. James's jaw tightens, muscles working, as he decides whether to open this door. Then something about the night, about her honesty, about standing on a balcony between worlds, makes him brave or foolish enough to speak truth he usually buries. I found a flaw, he begins. A seal design that would fail catastrophically in certain temperature conditions. I reported it through proper channels, followed every protocol, trusted the safeguards that are supposed to protect people who speak up. His voice hardens. The company buried it, classified my reports, dismissed my concerns as overcautious paranoia. Catherine's hand moves closer to his on the railing, not quite touching, but near enough that he can feel her heat. So I went to the FAA, James continues, filed formal complaints, became a whistleblower. He laughs bitterly, the sound harsh against the soft Chicago night. Whistleblower protections are a nice idea until you try to use them. The company destroyed me. Lawsuits that never had merit but drained every cent fighting them. Legal fees that multiplied like cancer. My name blacklisted across the entire industry, whisper campaigns painting me as unstable, difficult, not a team player. And then Catherine prompts gently, because she can hear in his voice that the worst is still coming. And then my wife died, James says, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Car accident while I was in court, fighting for the truth, fighting to save lives. She was rushing home from working a double shift to cover our legal bills, exhausted beyond reason, her attention fractured by stress. She ran a red light. The truck driver never had a chance to stop. His hands grip the railing hard enough that his knuckles turn white. Emma was 4, old enough to ask where Mommy went. Too young to understand she was not coming back. Too young to comprehend that Daddy's choice to do the right thing cost them everything. Catherine's hand covers his now warm and solid and real. You did the right thing, she says fiercely, her voice carrying conviction that surprises them both. You saved lives, and destroyed mine in the process. James counters the old argument, automatic. Some days I wonder if it was worth it. If Sarah would still be alive, if I had just kept my mouth shut. It was worth it, Catherine insists, her grip tightening on his hand. Because men like you who choose integrity over comfort, you are the ones who change the world, even when the world does not thank you for it, even when the cost is more than anyone should have to pay. The words unlock something in James's chest, something that has been locked tight for 3 years. When was the last time someone defended him, believed him, saw his sacrifice as noble instead of foolish? When was the last time someone said, you did the right thing without adding, but at what cost? You know what I learned running this company? Catherine says softly, her thumb unconsciously tracing small circles on the back of his hand. The gesture intimate without being intentional. We spend our whole lives building walls to protect ourselves from getting hurt. Stone and mortar and defense mechanisms we convince ourselves are strength. She meets his eyes, hazel, catching his steady gaze. But eventually the walls become the prison. And we forget that the only way out is to let someone in. James feels the space between them shrinking not in physical distance, but in the defenses they both wear like armor. I have been behind walls for 3 years, he admits, keeping my head down, staying invisible, protecting Emma from the world that chewed me up and spit me out, telling myself that survival is enough, that we do not need anything more than food and shelter and each other. And tonight, Catherine asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Tonight, James says, slowly choosing each word with care, I feel dangerously close to visible again. To wanting more than survival. to remembering what it feels like to be seen. Catherine's hand lifts from the railing, hesitant, and brushes against his jaw. The touch is feather light, but sends electricity through James's entire body, awakening nerves he thought died with Sarah. Her fingers are cool against his skin, soft in a way that speaks of manicures and lotions, and a life that does not include construction work or chemical burns. "James," she whispers, and his name in her mouth sounds like prayer. The door to the balcony swings open with a crash of sound and sudden light. A group of executives stumbles onto the balcony, drunk and loud, their laughter harsh after the intimacy of the moment before. They do not notice Catherine and James in the shadows, too absorbed in their own performance of wealth and status. Catherine and James step apart, the spell shattered, but the charge between them still humming in the air like electricity before a storm. Catherine's hand drops to her side, trembling slightly. James's jaw clenches with frustration at the interruption, at the timing, at the reminder that they are not alone in this world, despite how it felt moments ago. "We should go back inside," Catherine says, but her voice shakes with something that might be relief or disappointment or both tangled together. James nods, not trusting himself to speak. His heart still racing from her touch and the nearness of something he cannot name. But as they turn toward the door, he catches her hand one more time, pulling her close enough that the drunk executives cannot hear. "This is not pretend anymore," he says, the words urgent and honest. Is it Catherine's breath hitches? Her eyes search his face, looking for doubt or fear, or the logical reasons they should walk away from whatever is building between them. She finds none. Only truth staring back at her, unflinching and patient. No, she admits the word, barely audible. It is not. They walk back into the gala together, hands linked, neither sure what comes next, but knowing with absolute certainty that something fundamental has shifted. The performance is over. What remains is raw and real and terrifying in ways that power and poverty never could be. Morning light is cruel in the way only truth can be. It reveals every crack, every illusion, every temporary magic that darkness allowed. The sun does not care about late-night confessions on balconies or touches that felt like promises. It simply rises and exposes reality in all its harsh clarity. James slips back into his grey coveralls in the pre-dawn darkness of his apartment, the fabric rough against skin that remembers silk, his body protesting the 5 a.m. alarm after only 3 hours of sleep. Emma still sleeps in the bedroom, her soft breathing audible through the thin walls, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest like a talisman. The borrowed suit hangs on the bathroom door where he left it, a ghost of elegance that feels like it belongs to someone else's life. James touches the fabric once, remembering Catherine's hand in his, the weight of her confession, the electricity of almost kissing before the world interrupted. Then he puts on his janitor's uniform and becomes invisible again. Horizon Tower looks the same as it always does when he arrives for his shift, polished marble and glass reflecting perfection, everything in its place. But something inside James has shifted, a tectonic plate, moving underground, invisible but fundamental. He pushes his cart through the executive hall, forcing himself to ignore the ache that comes with memory. The warmth of her hand, the tremor in her laugh, the way her eyes softened when the crowd was not watching, the nearness of her lips on that balcony before the moment shattered. His hands work automatically, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces, but his mind is elsewhere, replaying conversations and touches like a movie he cannot turn off. At his locker, he finds an envelope resting neatly on the shelf. His name written in precise, elegant handwriting he recognizes from the gala. His hands shake slightly as he opens it. Inside a check. More than generous. More than he expected. Enough for Emma's shoes and piano lessons, and maybe even a cushion for the months when construction work slows down in Chicago winter. And a note. 2 words in Catherine's hand. "Thank you." James stares at the check for a long time, his thumb tracing the number that represents security and stability, and the breathing room his family desperately needs. Money means new shoes that fit Emma's growing feet. It means saying yes when she asks for things, instead of the constant calculation of what they can afford. It means eating something other than pasta and canned sauce for the 3rd night in a row. But the envelope also draws a line, as if what passed between them could be neatly filed under transaction payment for services rendered a business arrangement concluded. Thank you implies ending, implies that he did his job, and now it is finished, and they can both return to the separate worlds they inhabit. James slips the envelope back into his locker, untouched, the metallic clang echoing louder than it should in the empty break room. He cannot explain why, cannot articulate the feeling that taking the money would cheapen something that felt sacred, but the instinct is strong enough that he listens. Days pass like water, each one identical to the last. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. James keeps his head down, mopping endless corridors, emptying trash bins full of the detritus of other people's productive lives, pretending that the night of the gala was just an unusual job, a strange detour that changes nothing. Yet every time the elevator chimes, he finds himself listening for the click of her heels. Every time a door opens, his head lifts involuntarily, searching for emerald silk that will not appear in daylight, for hazel eyes that saw him as something more than invisible. Catherine does not appear. The 42nd floor remains empty of her presence during his shifts. Lights off in her office, her assistant's desk cleared. He tells himself it is better this way. Cleaner, less complicated. They can both return to their lives, the CEO and the janitor, the temporary intersection of their worlds closing as if it never happened. But the lie tastes bitter. On Wednesday evening, as James empties trash in a conference room, Linda Chen appears in the doorway. She studies him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "She has not been sleeping," Linda says without preamble. Catherine. She works until 3 a.m., then stares at her computer without typing. She cancelled lunch with the mayor. She missed a donor breakfast. Her voice softens. Whatever happened between you two, it was not nothing. James's hands still on the trash bin. "I do not know what you want me to say." Linda crosses her arms. "I want you to know that in 6 years of working for her, I have never seen Catherine look at anyone the way she looked at you that night. Like you were oxygen, and she had been drowning." She pauses. "I also want you to know that Preston Cole, our CFO, has been asking questions about her schedule, about where she goes, who she sees." The name means nothing to James, but the warning in Linda's tone is clear. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Linda says whatever this is between you, someone is watching, and they are looking for ammunition." She meets his eyes. "Be careful, Mr. Harper, for both your sakes." She leaves before James can respond, her warning hanging in the air like smoke. It happens on a Wednesday afternoon when the lobby is quieter than usual, that dead time between lunch and evening when Chicago holds its breath before the rush hour surge. James empties trash bins near the security desk. His movements automatic after years of the same routine, his mind replaying Linda's warning from days before. Someone is watching. The elevator chimes, a sound he has heard 10,000 times, meaningless background noise. But something makes him look up, some instinct or coincidence or fate intervening. Catherine Ward stands there, and James forgets how to breathe. Gone is the CEO armor of power suits and severe hair. In its place, jeans that look expensive but comfortable. A soft cream sweater that makes her seem almost unrecognizable, her hair down and loose around her shoulders. She carries a garment bag, the midnight blue suit visible through the clear plastic. She looks like she borrowed someone else's life for the day. Stepped out of the corporate world and into something more human, more real. Their eyes meet across the lobby, and the weaker part collapses into nothing. James feels the impact like physical force, desire, and confusion and hope tangled together in his chest. "I came to return the suit," Catherine says, crossing toward him, with careful steps, her voice uncertain in a way it never is in boardrooms, but her eyes linger on his face, searching, questioning, asking things her words do not say. James reaches for the garment bag, his voice even despite the chaos in his chest. "You could have sent it with security." Catherine gives a small shrug, awkward in its honesty. Vulnerability showing through the cracks. "I wanted to make sure it fit properly." She pauses, the words carrying weight. "For next time." The phrase hangs between them, charged with possibility. Next time implies future, implies this is not over, implies they might do this again, pretend or real or something in between. Before James can respond, before he can process what next time means, a familiar voice cuts through the moment. "Daddy," Emma calls, waving a crayon-stained hand from a corner table where she sits with homework spread across marble like she owns the place. James had arranged with security months ago to let Emma wait in the lobby after school until his shift ended, his elderly babysitter unable to stay past 3 p.m. and James having no other options. She sits with her backpack, her homework, her drawings, her legs swinging under the chair in that restless way children have when forced to be still. Emma's dark eyes widen when she sees Catherine. Curiosity lighting her expression with the fearless interest only children possess. She hops off her chair and approaches without hesitation, without James's learned caution around wealth and power. "This is Miss Ward," James introduces carefully, pride slipping into his tone despite his attempt at neutrality. She works upstairs. The introduction feels inadequate, reducing Catherine to her function when she is so much more than that now. But Emma, fearless as children are, before the world teaches them fear, tilts her head and studies Catherine with the intensity of someone who sees more than adults give credit for. "You are the lady Daddy has been thinking about," she announces with devastating directness, her voice carrying in the quiet lobby. James's face flushes hot. "Emma." He starts, mortification flooding through him. "It is okay," Catherine says quickly, kneeling beside Emma so they are eye-level, genuine warmth softening her features. A smile touches her lips, the first real one James has seen since the gala. "What are you working on?" Emma's face lights up with the joy of someone asked about their passion. "Math homework, but I finished it already because numbers are easy." She reaches for her papers, shuffling through them. "Now I am drawing." "Want to see?" "I would love to," Catherine says, and means it. Emma pushes a sheet of paper toward Catherine. Bold lines and bright colors filling a page. "It is a castle," she explains, her small finger tracing the tall towers she drew in purple crayon, the details excessive in the way child art celebrates abundance. But look, she is sad. See her face in the window. Catherine studies the drawing, seeing a simple, sad face sketched in one of the tower windows. Why is she sad? Emma's expression grows serious, that particular gravity children bring to important matters. Because castles are big and pretty, but they are cold. And she is all alone up there. Nobody can visit, because the door is locked. She looks at Catherine. "Do you live in a big place like this?" "I do," Catherine admits softly, something in her chest tightening. "Then you understand," Emma says with the wisdom of someone who has thought deeply about architecture and emotion. "Big places are scary when you are alone. You hear every sound and it echoes." She picks up a purple crayon. "But watch. I can fix it." With careful strokes, Emma draws a wide doorway at the base of the castle, adding flowers on either side. Windows she colors yellow to show light inside. There, she announces proudly, "Now people can come in. Now she is not lonely anymore." She looks up at Catherine. You just have to open the door, let people visit. Her eyes dart between her father and Catherine with innocent wisdom that sees connections adults try to hide. Daddy, she says matter-of-factly, you should invite Miss Catherine to dinner. We are having spaghetti tonight, the kind with cinnamon that Mummy taught us. The mention of Sarah lands gently, naturally part of their story, rather than a wound. Emma speaks of her mother the way she speaks of the sky being blue, a fact of their world. James freezes caught between the world he has built safe and small and protected, and the one he has been too afraid to imagine. Emma's invitation hangs in the air, impossible to ignore. Catherine's soft laugh breaks the tension. You make spaghetti with cinnamon? She asks James, her eyes dancing with amusement and something softer. It is a long story. James manages his ears, burning with embarrassment and hope tangled together. I would like to hear it, Catherine says, her eyes finding his across Emma's head. If the invitation is still open? Emma claps her hands together. It is right. Daddy say yes, and James, looking at his daughter's hopeful face and Catherine's vulnerable expression and the drawing of a castle with doors wide open, feels something dangerous stir inside him again. Something he thought died with Sarah, buried under grief and poverty and the weight of just surviving. Hope. Yeah, he says, his voice rough. The invitation is open. Emma pumps her fist in victory, then immediately starts gathering her homework. We need to go grocery shopping first, she announces to Catherine, because we only have enough spaghetti for 2 people, and you are coming, so we need more. Also, we should get the fancy cheese, the kind in the green can. Catherine laughs, really laughs, the sound filling the lobby. I would be honored to have spaghetti with fancy cheese. As they prepare to leave, Emma chattering about the proper cheese-to-pasta ratio, James catches Catherine's hand for just a moment. Are you sure, he asks quietly. This is not the gala. This is real life. Small apartment, burnt garlic bread. A 7-year-old who will ask you 1,000,000 questions. Catherine squeezes his hand, her smile soft and genuine. That sounds perfect. Catherine hesitates at the base of the narrow stairwell, the garment bag still in her hand, as though one more step might cross a line she cannot return from, might commit her to something. Her logical CEO brain screams is dangerous and complicated and absolutely inadvisable. The building is nothing like Horizon Tower with its glass and steel and architectural statements. Here the walls are lined with faded yellow paint that peels at corners like old wallpaper. The hallway carries the scent of someone's cooking garlic and tomato sauce, and something warm that makes Catherine's stomach tighten with unexpected hunger, reminding her she skipped lunch for a conference call that achieved nothing. A door opens somewhere above, spilling music and laughter into the stairwell. A child's shriek of joy. A parent's gentle scolding in Spanish. Life being lived in small spaces packed together, everyone hearing everything. When James opens the door to his apartment, Emma's laughter spills out like light, bright and uncontained, pulling Catherine forward. The apartment is small in a way that makes Catherine's penthouse feel obscene. A living room that flows directly into a kitchen, separated only by a breakfast bar with 2 wobbly stools. But something about the space makes Catherine's chest tighten, a feeling she cannot name. Photographs of Emma line every available surface, a timeline of growth from infant to toddler to the 7-year-old she is now. Gap-toothed smiles frozen in frames that do not match some plastic from drugstores, some wooden and hand-painted. School art projects are clipped to the refrigerator with magnets shaped like stars and dinosaurs and the letters of Emma's name. A crocheted blanket, colors faded, but softness evident, is draped over the arm of a couch that has seen better decades, the fabric worn smooth by use. On the wall above the couch, a calendar marked in 2 colors. Emma's school events in blue ink, careful and neat. James's work shifts in red, overlapping and crowded. a grocery list on the counter in 2 different handwritings, Emma's loopy letters spelling strawberries wrong next to James's reminder for milk and bread. This is what a home looks like, Catherine realizes with sudden clarity that makes her eyes sting. Not the square footage or the view or the price per square foot, just love stitched into every corner, visible in the things people choose to keep, in the imperfections that tell stories. The kitchen comes alive with motion as they arrive. James ties an apron that says, "Dad Jokes." Loading in faded letters, the fabric worn soft from washing. Emma stands on her step stool, carefully positioned at the counter, measuring pasta with the seriousness of a scientist conducting experiments. "Can I help?" Catherine asks, feeling useless and out of place in her expensive jeans and cashmere sweater. James hands her a wooden spoon, its handle worn smooth by years of stirring. "Can you stir the sauce? Keep it from burning?" Catherine takes it, the weight unfamiliar in her hands that are more accustomed to signing contracts worth millions than cooking dinner. When was the last time she stood in a kitchen and made something with her hands? When was the last time she cooked anything more complex than reheating takeout? She watches James work, sees competence. She did not expect grace in his movements. That speaks of years of practice. He chops vegetables efficiently, drains pasta one-handed while adjusting seasoning with the other. There is poetry in the way he moves through this tiny kitchen, a dance perfected through necessity. "What if I ruin this?" A voice whispers inside Catherine's head as she stirs the bubbling sauce. "What if your edges are too sharp for something this gentle? What if you do not know how to be the person who belongs in this space?" But then Emma hands her a taste of the sauce on a small spoon, trusting her judgment. And Catherine thinks, maybe I can learn. Maybe it is not too late to become someone different. She catches James adding cinnamon to the sauce, a generous shake from a small spice jar. "Really?" she asks, skeptical that such a combination could work. "Trust me," James says with a grin that makes him look years younger, the worry lines around his eyes softening. "It is weird, but it works. My wife taught me. Her grandmother's secret." The mention of Sarah lands gently this time, not a wound, but a memory part of the story rather than the ending. Emma tries to demonstrate a cartwheel in the living room while they cook, wanting to impress Catherine with her gymnastics skills. She crashes into the coffee table, knocking over a glass of water that soaks through homework papers. "Ow!" Emma wails, more embarrassed than hurt, her face crumpling. "Careful, pumpkin," James says, rushing over with a towel. "I wanted to show Miss Catherine I can do gymnastics." Emma sniffles, tears starting. "But our apartment is too small, and I am so clumsy and—" "Hey," Catherine interrupts gently, kneeling beside her. "I cannot do a cartwheel at all. I tried once and broke my roommate's lamp, and her favorite mug, and I might have cracked the ceiling. You are already way ahead of me." Emma giggles through tears, the sound watery but real. "Really, really," Catherine promises. "Want to know a secret? The best people are not the ones who are perfect. They are the ones who try anyway, even when they crash into coffee tables. They sit at the wobbly table, 3 mismatched chairs on linoleum that has seen better decades, and eat spaghetti that is better than Catherine expected. The cinnamon adds depth and warmth, and something unexpected that works despite logic, proving that sometimes the strangest combinations create something beautiful. Kind of like us, Catherine thinks but does not say. Emma eats with enthusiasm, sauce on her face, her joy infectious. She tells stories between bites about school, about her teacher who has a funny laugh about the rabbit she still wants for her birthday. Dessert is Emma's creation, presented with pride. Surprise cookies, she calls them, an improbable mix of chocolate chips, marshmallows, and crushed graham crackers. They are messy in the best way, chaotic and sweet, and absolutely delightful tasting, like childhood and freedom from perfection. When Emma yawns hugely over her milk, James ruffles her hair. Bedtime, pumpkin. Brush your teeth. But I am not tired, Emma protests through another yawn. Huh? Bed. Now. Emma slides off her chair, then surprises Catherine by wrapping small arms around her waist. You are nice, she whispers. I am glad you came. Can you come back? Catherine's throat tightens. I would love that, sweetheart. James follows Emma to her room. Through the thin walls, Catherine hears their nighttime routine. Running water. Emma asking if they can get a puppy. James is patient, maybe. The negotiation about stuffed animals. The soft click of a door. When James returns, the apartment has grown quiet, save for the hum of the old refrigerator. Catherine helps gather plates without being asked, drying dishes older than she is. She picks up a chipped blue mug with a faded superhero logo. The handle has been glued back together, the repair obvious but functional. Emma gave me that for Father's Day 3 years ago, James says, watching her. Used her allowance. 50 cents at a garage sale. It is ugly, but it is perfect. Catherine finishes softly, understanding something she did not before. She looks around at the visible love. The grocery list in 2 handwritings. The silly flower, Emma tucked into a jar. The stack of library books, 3 for Emma, and 1 engineering textbook for James. Thank you, she murmurs. For what? For letting me see this. She gestures at everything. Your real life. It is not much, James starts. It is everything, Catherine says fiercely. You have no idea how empty my penthouse feels compared to this. They stand in the narrow hallway outside Emma's room, the soft sound of her breathing drifting through the door like a lullaby. James should walk Catherine out, should say goodnight, keep boundaries clear. But neither moves. How do you do it? Catherine asks suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper in the dim hallway. Raise her alone. Work those hours. Stay so present. James leans against the wall, exhaustion and honesty weighing him down. I do not know, he admits. Most days I feel like I am failing, like I am not enough. His voice drops. Like she deserves better than a father who cannot afford piano lessons without counting pennies for weeks. Catherine steps closer. She sees you, she says with quiet urgency. Really sees you. The way she looks at you like you hung the stars. Do you know how rare that is? The distance between them narrows to almost nothing. James's hand lifts hesitant and tucks a strand of hair behind Catherine's ear. The gesture is so gentle it breaks something open inside her. When their lips meet, it is nothing like the careful, almost kiss on the balcony. This is unplanned, unpracticed, devastatingly real. Catherine's hands find James's shoulders, fingers curling into worn fabric. James's arms wrap around her waist, eliminating the space between them. She tastes like Emma's cookies, chocolate, and something sweeter. He smells like the sauce they cooked together, garlic and cinnamon and honest work. The kiss deepens, becomes something that speaks of recognition and need, and the dangerous hope that loneliness might not be permanent. When they finally pull apart, breathless, Catherine presses her forehead against James's chest, trembling. His heart pounds against her earproof that he is as affected as she is. This changes everything, Catherine whispers. James holds her close. Does it have to? She pulls back just enough to see his face. You do not understand my world. It does not work like this. I cannot just date someone. Every move I make is judged twisted, used against me. Her breath shakes. The board, the investors, the media. They will destroy this before it even begins. So we do not tell them, James suggests. But even as he says it, they both know the truth. Catherine Ward cannot hide. Her life is lived under scrutiny, every companion researched and analyzed. "I should go," Catherine says, but makes no move toward the door. James kisses her forehead, soft and lingering. "This is real, Catherine. Whatever happens next tonight was real." She nods against his chest. "That is what scares me most, because real things can be destroyed." Over the next 2 weeks, they find ways to exist in the margins, stealing moments between Catherine's board meetings and James's shifts. Coffee at 6 a.m. in a diner 3 neighborhoods away, where no one recognizes the CEO in jeans and a baseball cap. They talk about everything except work, learning each other in fragments. Late-night phone calls after Emma falls asleep. Catherine's penthouse feeling less empty, with James's voice filling the silence. Saturday afternoon at the park, Emma feeding ducks, while Catherine and James sit close on a bench, hands intertwined where cameras cannot easily see. But on Wednesday morning, Catherine arrives at her office to find a board member waiting in the hallway. "We missed you at the investor dinner last night," he says, his tone pointed. "5th event you have skipped this quarter. Everything all right?" Catherine forces a smile. "Just prioritizing my time more carefully." The man's eyes narrow. "Your father never missed an event. He knew that relationships matter in this business." He pauses. "I hope you are not losing focus, Catherine." The comment stings more than it should, planting seeds of doubt that grow in the silence after he leaves. What they do not know, Preston Cole, CFO of Horizon Industries, has been watching. Preston sits in his office that evening, the photographs of Catherine and James spread before him. His phone shows a picture of his own family, a wife and 2 children who do not know what their father has become. He could destroy these photos, could walk away, could let Catherine have her happiness. But then he thinks about the forensic audit scheduled for next quarter, about investigators circling closer to his embezzlement scheme, about prison, about losing everything. An old email catches his eye, from 10 years ago. His daughter's medical bills, experimental cancer treatment, insurance denied, the amounts staggering. He traces the embezzlement timeline. It started the month after she died. For a moment, something human flickers across his face. The money was never meant for yachts or mansions. It was desperation that calcified into corruption, grief that hardened into crime. But that does not matter now. The only thing that matters is survival. Fear makes the choice for him. He picks up the phone and calls his private investigator. The investigator is thorough. Photographs accumulate. Catherine entering James's building, at the park with Emma, kissing in a parking garage. But the investigator digs deeper. James Harper, former aerospace engineer, the whistleblower case, the bankruptcy, the arrest record from a bar fight 4 years ago. Technically dismissed. Self-defense proven. But the stain remains. It is all Preston needs. The envelope arrives on Thursday evening. Preston walks into Catherine's office without knocking, sits down uninvited, slides a leather portfolio across her desk. The photographs spill out like accusations. "Telephoto lenses do not lie," Preston says smoothly. "The board has concerns." He leans forward. Catherine Ward, brilliant CEO dating the night janitor. A man with a criminal record. A failed whistleblower who destroyed his own career. The optics are not good. He slides another document forward. A vote of no confidence. The board meeting is Monday morning. Preston continues. "They will want to know if you are compromised." He pauses. The choice is simple. End this distraction or step down. Company or him. You have until Monday. When Preston leaves, silence floods the office. Catherine sits frozen, the city skyline stretching behind her like a jury. Her hands shake as she picks up one photograph. James and Emma at the park, laughing. Company or love, legacy or truth. Everything her parents built balanced against the first genuine connection she has felt in years. On her desk, their portrait watches. Forever young, forever together, forever united. They understood something Catherine thinks. That power without love is just towers and glass. Beautiful, empty, fragile. That night, Catherine texts James. "Can you meet me without Emma?" The message carries weight that chills him. James arranges for Mrs. Rodriguez to watch Emma and meets Catherine at the diner. She sits in a corner booth still in work clothes, looking like glass pulled too tight. Without words, Catherine pushes the folder toward him. James opens it. The photographs hit first, then the background check. His life reduced to bullet points. The whistleblower case. The bankruptcy. The arrest record highlighted in yellow. How James asks quietly, "Does it matter?" Catherine's voice is flat. "My CFO is using this to force a vote of no confidence. Monday morning the board decides if I keep my position." She meets his eyes. "Because of you." The words land like blows. "The arrest," Catherine says. "Tell me." James stares into his coffee. "A guy at a bar was harassing a waitress. Would not take no for an answer. I stepped in. He shoved me. I shoved back. He swung. His voice flattens. I was bigger. I did not hit him hard, but he went down wrong. Cracked his head. Security footage cleared me." James continues. "Self-defense. Charges dropped. But the arrest stays on my record." He lifts his eyes. "People see assault. They do not see defense." And Sarah James's jaw tightens. "My wife died while I was in court fighting the whistleblower case, rushing home from her second job to cover our legal fees. She ran a red light." His voice cracks. "Emma was 4. I had to tell her mommy was not coming home, because I chose to do the right thing." The story pours out heavy and unvarnished. I lost everything, James says simply. My job, my savings, my wife. The only thing I had left was Emma. He reaches across the table. "And now you know the truth. I am just a guy who could not keep his mouth shut. And everyone paid the price." Catherine's hand tightens around his. "You did the right thing." "No," James interrupts gently. He pulls his hand back. "Do not make this harder than it is." "What are you saying?" "I am saying you should choose the company. You cannot throw away everything your parents built for someone like me. I will not let you." His shoulders square. "I am a janitor with a criminal record and nothing to offer except more problems. You are Catherine Ward. This was never going to work." James stands, leaving money on the counter. "I am sorry," he says, "for all of it." He walks away, disappearing into the Chicago night. Catherine whispers to the empty booth. "What good is ruling an empire if I rule it alone?" But James is already gone. James returns home hollow. He pays Mrs. Rodriguez checks on Emma already asleep, her drawings scattered on her pillow. One catches his eye. 3 stick figures. The tallest clearly male, the smallest with curls. The middle figure erased and redrawn 3 times, the paper thin from revision. At the bottom, "Our family." James sits on her bed, the drawing in his hands, feeling something crack. Daddy Emma's sleepy voice cuts through darkness. "You are sad again. Go back to sleep, pumpkin." But Emma sits up, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. "Are you sad because of Miss Catherine?" James freezes. "I heard you," Emma says simply. "That night at the diner, you told her she had to choose her job instead of us." Her face scrunches. "But Daddy, what if she did not want to choose? What if she wanted to fight for us?" The words land heavier than any boardroom threat. Emma climbs into his lap, small hands framing his face. Mommy left because she had to write. The accident. Yes, baby. But Miss Catherine wants to stay, Emma says with devastating clarity. I can tell. So why are you making her go away? I was trying to protect her, James whispers. From what? From losing everything because of me. Emma tilts her head, genuinely confused. But Daddy, is not that her choice? You always tell me everyone gets to make their own choices, even when they are hard, even when they are scary. James stares at his daughter, the student becoming the teacher. Emma holds up her drawing. See, there is room for all of us. You just have to let her in. She pauses. And maybe let her decide if she wants to be here. Because I think she does, Daddy. I think she loves us. James looks at the drawing. 3 figures holding hands. A door wide open. Room for everyone. What if she does not fight? He asks. Emma smiles. Then you fight for her, silly. That is what families do. Catherine wakes Saturday morning in her empty penthouse, the photographs spread across her table like evidence at a trial she cannot win. She walks to her study stands before her parents' portrait. They are young, standing together in front of the First Horizon Industries building. Partners in every sense. They built this empire together, Catherine whispers. You taught me that strength and love are not opposites. How do I do it alone? Her doorbell rings. Linda Chen stands there with coffee and determination. You look like hell, Linda says, walking in uninvited. Preston gave me an ultimatum, Catherine says. End things with James or lose my position. Linda studies the photographs particularly, one of Catherine and Emma laughing. And what are you going to do? I do not know. How can I risk everything my parents worked for? Linda sits beside her. Can I tell you something about your parents? What, the year before your mother died, the board wanted her to step down, said she was too soft, too emotional. Your father could have stayed alone. Instead, he threatened to resign unless they kept her, told them a company without heart was not worth running. Catherine stares. I never knew that. Your father chose your mother over the board's approval, Linda says. And you know what happened? Horizon Industries had its most profitable decade, because leaders who understand love understand people. Linda's voice firms. Your parents did not build this company by playing it safe. They built it by being brave enough to choose love and working to prove everyone wrong. Catherine stands pacing. Preston has been embezzling, has he not? Linda blinks. What, all those budget discrepancies? Catherine's mind sharpens. He is not coming after me because I am distracted. He is coming after me because I was looking too closely at his department. She turns to Linda. Get me every financial record from the aerospace division, 5 years back. I want to see where every dollar went. Linda grins. So you are fighting. Catherine looks at the photographs one more time. My parents taught me that power without love is just an empire waiting to crumble, she says quietly. I am choosing love, and I am fighting like hell to keep both. Saturday and Sunday blur into marathon investigation. Linda brings files. Catherine spreads them across her table laptop, open calculator clicking. The aerospace division. Payments that do not match timelines. Invoices for equipment never delivered. A shell company receiving consulting fees. Buried in paperwork. Preston Cole's brother-in-law listed as CEO of the shell company. Preston has been skimming for years, millions funneled through fake contracts. But Catherine finds something worse. Archived emails about safety reports filed 5 years ago. An engineer raising concerns about faulty seals. Serious reports with technical precision. The engineer's name, James Harper. Catherine's hands shake. James was right. His reports were thorough, correct, urgent. And the person who buried them, Preston Cole, head of aerospace at the time, James lost everything because Preston protected his fraud. And now Preston is using James's destroyed reputation as a weapon against Catherine. This is not about her love life. This is Preston protecting his crimes. Catherine sits back, evidence spread like a battle plan. She thinks about James scrubbing floors in the building where his career died, about Emma growing up without her mother, about lives Preston risked for profit. Preston wanted war. Catherine is bringing justice. Sunday afternoon, James stands outside Horizon Tower with Emma's hand in his. "Are you scared, Daddy?" Emma asks. Terrified, James admits. "That means it matters," Emma says. "You told me Brave is doing it anyway." James looks at his daughter. "You are right, Pumpkin. Let us go be brave." They walk into the lobby. Security recognizes James immediately. Mr. Harper, the guard, says uncertainly. "Miss Ward is not." "I know where she is," James says quietly, "and this time I am not asking permission." The elevator rises to the 42nd floor. Emma chatters. James's heart pounds. The elevator opens into Catherine's penthouse. She stands at the window, still in yesterday's clothes, looking more human than ever. "I told you to choose the company," James says. Catherine turns. "And I told you that you do not do halfway." Her voice shakes. "So why did you try to make my choice for me?" James stops, caught off guard. "You think walking away was noble?" Catherine continues, crossing to him. "It was insulting. It said, 'You do not think I am strong enough to fight for what I want. I was trying to save you from losing everything.' And who gave you that right?" Catherine demands, tears spilling. "I have spent my life being told what I should want. And you, the first person who saw me as just Catherine, you still tried to make my choice." "Miss Catherine," Emma says softly, "do not be mad at Daddy. He was being dumb, but it is because he loves you." Both adults freeze. "He told me everyone gets to make their own choices," Emma continues. "Even hard ones. Even scary ones." She looks at Catherine. "So what do you choose Monday morning?" The boardroom sits on the 45th floor, 12 faces around the table. Preston Cole sits at the far end, documents arranged confident. Catherine enters at 9 a.m. exactly. Linda behind her, carrying a thick portfolio. "Good morning," Catherine says. "You called this meeting to address my personal life. Let us address it." Preston leans forward. "The board has questions, I have answers," Catherine interrupts. "But first, let us talk about the real reason you want me out, Preston." She slides documents across the table. Financial records, email chains, bank transfers. For 5 years, she says, Preston Cole has embezzled over $12 million through shell companies and fraudulent contracts. The boardroom erupts. Papers rustle. Faces harden. Preston goes white. "That is absurd." "Is it?" Catherine slides more papers. Here are payments to his brother-in-law's shell company. Invoices for equipment never delivered. Contracts for projects that never existed. But that is not the worst part. 5 years ago, an aerospace engineer filed safety reports about faulty seals, critical failures that could have killed people. She stands, and Preston buried those reports, paid off inspectors, pushed unsafe equipment through production. Why? Because admitting problems would have exposed his embezzlement. More documents slide across the table. James's whistleblower filings, inspector bribes traced to Preston's budget. Safety violations Preston authorized. When that engineer went public, Catherine continues. Preston orchestrated his destruction, blacklisted him, bankrupted him, destroyed his career for doing the right thing. She pauses. That engineer is James Harper. Preston tries to recover, but your janitor has a criminal record. A bar fight, Catherine says dismissively. Self-defense. Charges dropped. Unlike your actual crimes, Preston. Fraud, embezzlement, bribery, Reckless endangerment. The board chairman stands, his voice cutting through the noise. Miss Ward, these are serious allegations. But Preston raises a valid point. How do we know this is not personal bias affecting your judgment? Catherine's heart pounds. She did not anticipate this defense. She takes a breath. You are right. I am in a relationship with James Harper. And yes, that gave me reason to look closely at the aerospace division. She meets Preston's eyes. But personal motivation does not invalidate evidence. Every document here is verified, independently audited. She turns to the board. My father taught me that the best decisions come when we care enough to look closely, when we refuse convenient lies because truth matters more. She taps the records. This is not bias. This is accountability. The chairman studies the documents. The room holds its breath. Chairman, I want independent verification, full forensic audit outside firm. He looks at Preston. Until then, you are suspended pending investigation. The vote is swift. Preston, stripped of his position, escorted out by security. When the boardroom empties, Catherine sits alone. On paper she won, but the victory feels hollow without the people she fought for. Catherine Linda's voice is soft. Catherine looks up. There is someone here to see you, Linda says, smiling. James stands in Catherine's office doorway. Emma's hand in his, still in his janitor's uniform. You fought, James says quietly. Catherine nods. I fought. Emma crosses to Catherine, wrapping arms around her waist. Thank you for fighting for my daddy. Catherine kneels to Emma's level. Thank you for teaching him to fight for me. James moves closer. I am sorry I tried to make your choice for you. I am sorry I let fear run my life. Catherine counters. I am terrified, James, of failing, of this not working. Me too, James admits. But Emma taught me something. Being scared means it matters. And you matter, both of you. So where do we go from here? Emma answers. Ice cream. Daddy says big conversations need ice cream. Despite everything, Catherine laughs. That sounds perfect. They sit in a corner booth, Emma destroying a sundae, blissfully unaware of the world around her. I spoke to the board about reinstating you, Catherine says. As lead safety consultant. Full salary, full benefits. Your name cleared. James is quiet. What about Emma Horizon has childcare, Catherine says. Or she could stay with me when you work. But James shakes his head. Catherine, I need to know we are doing this right. Not because you feel guilty. I need to know the real reason. Then why? Because we love each other, James says simply. Because Emma draws pictures of us. Because when I am with you, I feel like more than survival. His voice drops. I want to wake up knowing I chose this, that we both chose this. Catherine takes his hand. I spent my life building walls, and you saw through everyone. She squeezes. I do not want to fix your career because I feel guilty. I want to fix it because you were right. You saved lives. And I want the world to know. So we do this together, James asks. You, me, Emma. Together, Catherine agrees. No more running. We figure out how to have both. Emma looks up, chocolate on her face. Does this mean Miss Catherine is my mum now? The adults freeze. Because Emma continues, you are together and you love each other and you want breakfast on Saturdays. That is what families do. She tilts her head. Or do grown-ups make it complicated? James laughs. We absolutely make it complicated, Pumpkin. Catherine's eyes shimmer. If it is okay with your dad, I would be honored to be part of your family. It is okay, Emma says matter-of-factly. I already drew the picture. 6 months later, the house on a quiet Chicago street hums with the symphony of life fully lived. Morning sunlight spills through curtains catching piano keys as Emma practices scales, her tongue sticking out in concentration. The house is not Catherine's penthouse or James's apartment, but something they chose together. 3 bedrooms, small yard kitchen, big enough for all of them. Walls filling with Emma's framed artwork. On the refrigerator, a framed document adoption papers. Emma Marie Harper Ward. Finalized 3 weeks ago. James works as lead safety consultant for Horizon Industries, now his reputation celebrated. Last month he gave a keynote speech to standing ovation. But his favorite part is leaving at 5 p.m. to pick Emma up from school. Catherine still runs Horizon Industries, still fights boardroom battles. But now she measures success differently. By Saturday mornings like this, where pancakes burn slightly and the world slows down, Emma bounds into the kitchen, her latest drawing in hand. 3 figures a dog in the corner. "Can we get a puppy?" she asks for the 1,000th time. "Maybe for your birthday," James hedges. "You said maybe last week," Emma argues. "Maybe is just slow." "Yes," Catherine laughs, scooping pancakes onto plates. "You are too smart." "I am almost 8, Emma corrects. She climbs onto her chair. "Daddy, Miss Catherine." "I am really happy." The simple statement hits deeper than any grand declaration. James takes Catherine's hand. "Me too, pumpkin." Catherine looks around. The house too small by penthouse standards, but perfectly full. The man who saw through her armor. The daughter who taught them both about choosing love. "I learned something," Catherine says softly. "I spent my life thinking I had to choose between power and love. Turns out I just needed someone brave enough to show me you can build both." James kisses her hand. "You taught me that being broken does not mean beyond repair, that sometimes losing everything makes room for what you really needed. You two are being mushy again," Emma announces. They laugh, the sound filling spaces that used to echo with loneliness. Later, when Emma is outside with sidewalk chalk, Catherine and James sit on the front steps. "Thank you," Catherine says. "For what? For being you. For seeing me. For fighting even when I pushed you away." James wraps an arm around her. "That night, you asked me to act like I was yours." Catherine nods. "I told you I do not do halfway." James looks at her. "I was not acting, Catherine, not from the first minute. Maybe I knew even then that pretending to love you was impossible, because the real thing was already there." Catherine leans into him. "So what started as acting like we were together for one night became choosing each other every day?" James finishes. Emma runs up. "Come see what I drew." They follow to the driveway. She has recreated her drawing in bright chalk. House with glowing windows, 3 figures holding hands, a dog hopefully added. Above it, our family, not by blood alone, not by obligation, by choice, by fighting, by loving scared and showing up anyway. And sometimes that is the strongest family of all. A car pulls up. A reporter steps out with a camera. "Miss Ward," the reporter calls. "Is it true you are in a relationship with a former employee?" "Sources say he is a whistleblower who was discredited." "How do you respond?" Catherine feels. James tense, feels Emma's hand slip into hers. The old Catherine would have hidden. But that Catherine does not exist anymore. She steps onto the sidewalk, Emma and James flanking her. "Yes," she says clearly. "I am in a relationship with James Harper, former aerospace engineer, and the man who saved lives by exposing safety violations." She looks at James. "He is also the best man I know." The reporter blinks. "And your position at Horizon Industries secure?" Catherine says. "My board supports me. My company is stronger because I learned integrity matters more than appearances." She smiles. "Any other questions?" The reporter retreats. Inside, Emma grins. "You were so cool, Mom." The word lands softly. Mom. Not Miss Catherine. Mom. Catherine's eyes fill. "I learned from the best," she says. That night, after Emma sleeps, James and Catherine sit under stars Emma named. "Remember that night at Horizon Tower?" Catherine asks. "When I asked you to act like you were mine?" James nods. "You said something I did not understand then. You said you do not do halfway, that even pretending you would do it all the way." "I remember. I thought it was just a line," Catherine says. "But you meant it. Even then you knew you could not pretend." James kisses her forehead. "Pretending to love you would have been impossible. Because I could feel the real thing starting. So what started as just act like you are mine for tonight," Catherine murmurs, "became you are mine and I am yours and we are each other's." James finishes forever. They sit together holding each other under stars. In a life they chose a family. They built a love that started as pretend and became the most real thing either of them has known. Friends, if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, then I want you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button below this video because it tells me you want more stories like this. Stories about real people choosing love, even when it is hard, even when it is scary. And if you believe that kindness still matters in this world, that broken people can build beautiful things together, that it is never too late to let someone see who you really are beneath all the walls, then hit that subscribe button. Join our Soul Lift Stories family. We share stories every week that remind you hope is real, love is possible, and your story is not over yet. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that vulnerability is not weakness. Share it with someone who is building walls to protect themselves, but forgetting that those walls can become prisons. Share it with someone who thinks they have to choose between success and love, between their career and their heart, between who they are and who they think they should be. Because Catherine thought she needed someone to pretend to love her for one night. What she discovered was that real love cannot be performed. That the bravest thing you can do is let someone see the lonely person hiding behind your success. That sometimes a janitor and a CEO discover they were never opposites at all, just two people brave enough to be real. Your like helps this video reach more people. Your subscription builds this community. Your share might change someone's life today. So do not just watch and walk away. Be part of this story. Be part of spreading hope. Thanks for watching, and remember, you are never too broken to be loved. We will see you in the next story.